Hi there. Joachim Brohm emerged during a quiet moment in the history of photography, but it was a moment in which everything changed. It wasn't a revolution that caused tremors. It was a quiet, slow, and watchful process. Brohm had a vision that was decades ahead of its time, and he had to wait 25 to 30 years before his major projects were published. He chose color when black and white was the accepted medium of art photography. And he also refused to give viewers any form of decisive moment or singular point of focus. Yet his pictures are compelling because they're both informative and poetic. In 2020, an exhibition in Dusseldorf showcased his Ruhr photographs with Alec Soth sleeping in Mississippi. Brohm pays attention to the non-critical moments in which nothing much is happening, but he presents his subjects in a manner that allows everything to be noticed. His photographs can be seen as hesitations within an ongoing narration of life. If one was watching a documentary on television, his moments would probably have happened during an ad break. As viewers, we become aware of the ordinariness of life, not in a depressing way, but he's saying to us, take a look how interesting and beautiful this non-event really is. American photographers in the 1970s like Stephen Shaw and Louis Baltz prepared audiences to relate to deadpan views of built landscapes. Brohm took notice of this movement of documentary realism and adapted it to the North European experience, as well as the diffused light. While still studying in Essen during the early 1980s, he began photographing in the Ruhr region. He focused on the social and environmental transformation of the area as it entered a period of post-industrialization. People began reclaiming spaces for leisure activities. It was a time when theme parks and artificial lakes were being built in locations that were once dominated by mines and factories. His pictures reveal landscapes that are half-finished, and one is left with a sense of impermanence. Brohm grew up in the 1950s and 60s in a post-war Germany that was caught between ruin and renewal. His generation carried a deep distrust of technological advancement, ideology, and national identity. So the internal and external landscape that he chose to photograph was very different from that of the American photographers. No iconic images of industry, neon signs, or desert highways. Brohm's generation was still in a state of shock from what had occurred during the Second World War, and there was a moral fatigue and an aversion to any sweeping gestures of certainty. His work feels so restrained and neutral because he makes no attempt to dramatize, condemn, or glorify. Rather, he seeks out a form of dignity within the small, the ordinary, and the unheroic. He's not observing as an aloof onlooker. Rather, he's responding to a broader cultural position against the presentation of a spectacle. While at university, his professors were unimpressed by his decision to use color, and his subject matter was considered to be trivial. There was a sense that his work was lacking any clear narratives or dramatic content. The German photography establishment during the 1970s considered color to be brash and thought that it reflected ideas associated with American consumerism. But Brohm used it differently. His palette was soft, faded, and unglamorous. It's as if he was tentatively reintroducing a form of liveliness into a world that had drained itself of emotion. He would often choose an elevated perspective and deep depth of field, showing how people and landscapes influence each other. He balanced documentary precision with poetic subtlety. He wasn't reporting or pushing a particular angle. He was just watching, waiting, and communicating a mood. For this work, he could easily have focused on the intersection of leisure and industry in a more specific manner. But because of the informality and scale of his scenes, viewers become subtly aware of the changing relationships within nature and culture. There is a neutrality to his position, but he's not being nihilistic or intentionally conceptually boring. He always manages to encourage viewers to be curious. We are gently coaxed into exploring his scenes. In this shot, the upturned plastic dinghy becomes a partial point of focus, but it isn't overwhelmingly weird or significant. Once our eyes become drawn to this position, we become aware of the white bodies juxtaposed against the green grass. Then, when we contemplate the wider scene, we are reminded that it's probably just another ordinary Sunday afternoon in a park with cyclists pedaling slowly along the path. The electricity pylon in the distance is a reminder of industrialization, but it isn't menacing or dramatic. Rather, the community and the environment have merged. In 1983, Brohm received a Fulbright scholarship to study at Ohio State University. And while he was there, he produced a body of work that he called Ohio. During this time, he became more deeply aware of the new topographics from inside the culture that had produced it. But instead of imitating it, he merged his own aesthetic to this approach. Stephen Shaw had given him the permission to work in color, while Baltz gave him the permission to remove drama. But he resisted their documentary clarity, and his images maintained a poetic visual ambiguity. This is one of my favorites. A photojournalist would have looked for drama, maybe people trying to douse the fire, while Brohm holds a mid-distant view, and the scene becomes almost mundane. At this distance, the burning car becomes diminished to just another visual element within the scene. All of the components are able to compete for the viewer's attention. We become reminded that strange things may happen, but then life quickly returns to its normal routine. This space was ordinary the day before the fire, and it will return to being ordinary the day after. Brohm deeply appreciated Eggleston's sensitivity to color, that it can communicate meaning rather than just being another factual element. But while Eggleston would emphasize color through saturation in order to evoke an emotional response, Brohm maintained a muted, restrained palette. In the shot, his use of the color red is subtle. It brings form to the scene without overwhelming it. Eggleston is making color the primary subject in this picture. He would use his dye transfer process to emphasize the rich tones so that the colors perform a dance through his prints. Brohm's picture is more of a sweeping observation. One begins to ask questions about how the space could have evolved to include such a strange combination of unfinished elements. This low-key picture of Brohm's resembles some of Stephen Shaw's urban scenes, without the emphasis on structure or the impact of saturated colors. Here, Shaw's LA picture is all about how competing elements within the frame direct our attention. This Shaw picture captures a similar random moment to Brohm's, but color and light are the glue that hold it together. The warm directional light picks up the red clothing of the couple in the center of the frame, as well as emphasizing the shape of the surrounding structures. The rich blue sky creates an umbrella over the whole urban scene. Going back to Brohm's picture, a dull reddy brown color holds this picture, but it doesn't drown out the other aspects of his communication. The people are obediently waiting for the traffic lights to change, while in the background, the cowboy is experiencing a truly free and exciting life as he rounds up horses. Brohm and Andreas Gursky are the same age, both German, and they share a similar educational background and thematic interests. While Gursky went hyper-formal and produced monumental statements, Brohm stayed rooted in the ordinary, the unresolved, and in the in-between. Compare this Gursky beach scene with some of Brohm's seaside moments. Brohm's photographs reflect a strong understanding of the world and the unspecific nature of daily life. They attempt to communicate mood rather than presenting a rational explanation. He does this by presenting everyday scenes in a straightforward manner. They occupy a space that is somewhere between a formal composition and a snapshot. This allows viewers to feel contained by a level of formality. We realize that we're being shown something, but then he resists being specific about the subject that he's presenting. His pictures illustrate how we live, while Gursky describes the systems we live in. I'll look at another comparison that illustrates their contrasting approaches. Gursky's 99 Cent 2 is a Titanic shot that is taken from an elevated position. It's immediately impactful, captivating, and announces an unmistakable message about consumerism. As a viewer, one is overwhelmed by pattern and color and is left somewhere between fascination and repulsion. In comparison, this is a quiet shot taken from a pedestrian viewpoint at an insignificant site. Brohm's picture does say something about consumerism, but it's more of a broad acknowledgement about the transience of things and the projects of man. Brohm's work is considered to be a crucial link that integrated American photographic developments into German photography from the 1970s onwards. There was a bridging of the two cultures by the adoption of color and a focus on urban transformation. Rather than making bold statements, Brohm considers that the most important realities are those that are unfolding so slowly that we barely register them. I'll run some more images from other projects, but thanks for staying with me, and I'll see you next time.